Picture two neighbors. One burns his mortgage on the loan, the other keeps paying 3% for 30 years. 20 years later, who's actually richer? Here's the thing, it's not even close. Not the way you think. The guy with the bonfire feels like a winner. No payment, no bank, no chains hanging over him. But his real net worth, the one funding retirement, is losing a race he doesn't even know he's running. Most people don't realize debt-free and wealthy aren't the same word. Sometimes they're opposites. The math gets uncomfortable fast. Let me explain where this idea even came from. Your grandparents were right, but only for their word. They lived through mortgages at 12, 14, even 16%. At those rates, your house was eating you alive. Every extra dollar at principal was a guaranteed 16% return, tax-free, risk-free. Of course you killed that debt. So the rule got carved into stone. Debt is the enemy. Pay it off. Sleep better at night. Pass that wisdom to your kids. The kids pass it to their kids. Nobody ever updates the firmware. Here's what changed. For the last 15 years, people locked mortgages at 3, 4, sometimes under 3%. That's not your grandfather's mortgage. It's almost free money, stretched 30 years, with the bank carrying all the risk. But the rule in our heads still treats it like the enemy. Same emotion, totally different math. There's also the feeling part. Being mortgage-free feels like winning, like the finish line in every personal finance book. The party, the loan bonfire, the Instagram post. Emotionally, it's powerful. Financially, it's often a complete disaster. That's the gap we're living inside today. Feeling safe versus being actually rich. They are not the same thing. Then, one number breaks the whole intuition. Your mortgage rate. Let's say 3%. Just hold that.
The long-run stock market return, roughly 7% after inflation, somewhere between 6 and 10. 3. 7. Every extra dollar thrown at your mortgage earns exactly 3%. Guaranteed, yes, but only 3%. That same dollar, dropped into a boring index fund, has historically earned roughly double that. Compounded. 30 years. This gap is called opportunity cost, the single most ignored number in personal finance. You don't see it. No bill in the mail, no line item, no phone notification saying you left 4% yearly behind. It's invisible. And invisible costs are the most expensive ones you'll ever quietly pay over 20 long years. Think about it this way. When you prepay, you voluntarily choose 3% over a 7% investment. If an advisor pitched that trade aloud, you'd throw him out. Wrapped in mortgage, it suddenly feels noble. The spread between your rate and the market is a hidden tax you pay in dollars you never see. But the spread is only half the trap. Now let's stack another layer on top of it. Mortgage interest for many homeowners is tax deductible. Rules changed recently, your situation may differ, talk to a professional. Which means your 3% mortgage after the deduction might actually cost you closer to 2.3%. 2%. That is almost nothing. That is barely keeping up with coffee getting more expensive every single year.
Which brings us to the quietest force in finance, inflation, silently erasing the real value of your fixed debt. Your mortgage balance is frozen in time, but the dollars you use to pay it shrink every year. You borrow today's dollars, you pay back tomorrow's dollars, and tomorrow's dollars are worth way less over 30 years. The mortgage you signed in 2020 feels huge today. By 2050, that payment feels like pocket change. So who carries that inflation risk? Not you, the bank. They locked into cheap money for 3 decades. They're praying you don't notice. And the truth is, most people don't realize this is happening at all. So when you prepay aggressively, you are voluntarily handing the bank back their best gift to you. You're saying, no thanks, I don't want the cheap 30-year loan anymore. I'd rather feel safe instead. Feeling safe is fine, But let's at least be honest about what that emotional comfort actually costs you. There's a psychology piece here too. People love what they call the guaranteed return of paying down a mortgage. 3% guaranteed feels better than 7% maybe. The brain loves certainty. The brain hates volatility. But over 30 years, volatility flattens out. The market zigzags up and down, but the long line bends north. Choosing guaranteed 3 over probable 7 for 30 years isn't safety. It's a very expensive emotional habit. Now watch what happens to your liquidity. This is the part nobody talks about until it's too late. When you prepay, every extra dollar disappears into the walls of your house. It's equity, but it's frozen. You cannot eat it, you cannot use it for rent elsewhere, you cannot send it to a hospital. Now picture the bad day. Job loss, layoff, a medical bill landing like a bomb, a failing roof. Your house holds $200,000 in equity, but your checking account has $600. What now? You'd think, easy, I'll get a HELOC, borrow against the equity.
Here's the cruel joke of HELOCs. They vanish exactly when you need them. Lose your job? They check income and pull the credit line. Market crash? They freeze new lending. The same equity safety net suddenly becomes a sealed, untouchable vault. There's a whole category of people called house rich, cash poor. A big Zillow number, an empty fridge, frozen lives. They cannot move, they cannot pivot, they cannot breathe. One bad quarter and they're forced to sell. Selling the house at the worst possible time in a soft market to a buyer who smells desperation. Compare that to the neighbor who kept the 30-year mortgage and quietly invested the difference each month. Same bad day hits him too, but he's got a real brokerage account he can actually tap, a money market fund, a genuine buffer. He doesn't have to call the bank or beg anyone, he just sells some shares quietly. That, my friend, is what real wealth actually looks like inside. Not a paid-off house. Optionality itself. The ability to say yes and no on your own terms. And here's where the whole story really flips on you. Reframe the entire thing for 1 second. A 30-year fixed mortgage is not a chain on you. It is a genuinely beautiful financial instrument.
Where else can you borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars at a locked rate for 3 full decades? The bank can never call it back, never raise the rate, never change the terms on you. Nowhere. That deal basically does not exist anywhere else in your entire financial life. Truly, nowhere else. It's a 30-year bet against inflation, dressed up quietly as an ordinary monthly house payment for you. The locked rate is not a bug at all. It is the feature. Most people don't realize this. Every year, those dollars you pay back are quietly worth a little less in real-life terms. And that works quietly in your favor every single month, year after year. That is honestly a gift. And what do most people actually do with that beautiful gift? They rush to give it right back. They throw extra principal at it like the entire house itself is on fire and desperately needs saving. Banks, by the way, absolutely love this behavior. They love prepayment more than almost anything else today. Their best loans, those cheap fixed ones from the low-rate era, are quietly costing them money now. Every time a homeowner prepays a 2.8% mortgage, the bank gets that fresh cash back. Then they lend that exact same cash out at 5, 6, even 7% in today's market. They smile quietly. They send you a polite thank you letter. Here's the thing most homeowners truly miss. That's the part that should make you pause. If the bank is happy, you should check your math twice. Here's the distinction. Real wealth versus looking wealthy. Looking wealthy is a paid-off house, a clean balance sheet. Real wealth is money you can touch. An investment account you use this afternoon. Months of expenses liquid. Net worth on a spreadsheet and net worth you can actually spend are two completely different animals. The early payoff plan optimizes the spreadsheet. The patient plan optimizes your actual life. Project 20 years forward. It stings.
Let me give you the long version. Two neighbors, same house, same income, same family. One key difference. Neighbor A hates debt. He throws every spare dollar at the mortgage, $500 extra a month. He kills the 30-year loan in roughly 15 years. He throws the bonfire, big party, mortgage-free at 50. Neighbor B keeps the 30-year mortgage. He sends the bank exactly the minimum, not a single dollar more. That same $500 a month that neighbor A throws at principal, neighbor B drops into a boring index fund every single month for 15 years, then for 30. Quiet, automatic, boring contributions stacking up in the market. For the first few years, they look almost identical. Neighbor A even looks like he's winning the race. His mortgage balance is shrinking faster every month. His Zillow's estimate looks great at the neighborhood barbecue.
Neighbor B has an investment account that bounces around, sometimes scary, sometimes flat, sometimes climbing quietly upward. Then compounding wakes up. By year 10, neighbor B's account is starting to snowball. The gains are earning gains, the boring magic. By year 15, when neighbor A is throwing his big party and lighting up the lawn, meanwhile, neighbor B has a brokerage account already pushing past the value of neighbor A's entire prepayment savings. By year 20, the gap is loud. By year 25, it is 6 figures. Maybe deep into 6 figures. Both men feel responsible. Both feel like good providers. Both worked hard. Only one is meaningfully richer, and the rich one still has a mortgage. That is the part that breaks people's brains entirely. The guy with the debt holds the bigger pile of usable money. The exact dollar gap is brutal. Let's put real numbers on it. A $300,000 mortgage, 3% fixed, 30 years. The monthly payment lands near $1,300. Now imagine you throw an extra $500 at it. You're focused, you're disciplined, you aid the bank. Here's exactly what that aggressive payoff plan buys you. You finish the mortgage in about 17 years instead of 30. You save roughly $40,000 in interest. Real money. That feels great.
Now run the other plan. Same person, same income, same $500. Pays the minimum on the mortgage, drops that $500 into a boring index fund at average return. Fast forward 15 years. That account is sitting around $180,000 in equity. 20 years in, north of $250,000. 30 years in, easily past $600,000. So the prepayer saved $40,000, the investor earned $180,000 by year 15 alone. A whole lot more by year 30. The cost of just feeling debt-free? About $140,000. And that gap only gets bigger. $140,000 is not a rounding error. That's a kid's college. That's 5 years of retirement. The price tag on one single feeling. So when does prepaying actually make sense? Here's the thing. I'm not saying never prepay. That's dogma, and dogma got people into this mess first. Let's break it down with an actual framework.
5 rules. Use them like a decision tree, not a religion. Rule 1. Compare your mortgage rate to your realistic after-tax expected return. Not what you wish it was, not what your cousin made on one stock. The boring, long-run, after-tax number. That's what actually matters here. If your mortgage is 3% and your expected return is 6 or 7 after taxes, investing wins. If those two numbers are basically the same, the answer is fuzzier. Then it gets more personal. Rule 2. Before you prepay a single dollar, build a real cash buffer. 6 months of expenses, liquid, boring. Sitting in a high-yield savings account or money market fund. No exceptions to this rule, ever. Prepaying your mortgage while having $2,000 in checking is not wealth. That's one bad week from disaster. Rule 3. Max out the tax advantage accounts first. Your retirement plan match at work counts as free money. Your individual retirement account. Health savings accounts if you qualify. The government is literally handing you free money. Walking past free money to pay down a 3% loan is one of the worst financial trades available. Rule 4. Math changes when rates change. If your mortgage sits at 6, 7, 8%, the spread inverts. Now, prepaying is actually competing with or beating the expected market return, especially on a risk-adjusted basis. At those rates, prepaying becomes a respectable, sometimes excellent choice. The rule isn't never prepay, it's know your rate. Rule 5. The sleep at night premium is real. Some people genuinely cannot function with debt hanging over them. The anxiety costs them more than the math saves. If that's honestly, deeply you, then prepay with eyes open. Know you are paying a premium for emotional comfort. Same way some people pay for first-class flights. Fine. Notice what this framework isn't. Not that good, savings bad. Not always invest, never prepay. It's a decision tree. Inputs go in, decisions come out. Your rate, your taxes, your buffer, your accounts, and your nerves matter. That's what smarter money moves actually look like. Not slogans, not bonfires. Just clear thinking about clear numbers. One more hidden cost most people miss. Here's the bigger pattern, and it's what most people never see. The same trap exists everywhere in personal finance. The advice that feels safest often quietly costs you the most. Paying off the mortgage early, keeping huge amounts in cash, avoiding the market because it feels scary, sitting on a savings account paying 0.5% while inflation quietly eats 4% every single year. Every one of these moves feels responsible. Everyone whispers, "Good job, you're being careful." Yet there's a catch. And every one of these moves over decades hands real wealth to someone else, usually a patient bank. Usually the neighbor who separated the feeling of safety from the actual math of safety. That gap costs everything. And the next domino in this same pattern? Rent versus buy. Even more loaded than the mortgage debate. Renting is throwing money away, right? Buying is always smarter, right? The answer depends on numbers people never run. When you actually run them, the conventional wisdom flips again, sometimes hard. Stick with me for one last lesson. If you want smarter money moves instead of feel-good money moves, subscribe to Andy Explains Money. New video weekly. No hype, no tickers, no get-rich nonsense. Just the math behind the decisions that shape your whole financial life. If this changed how you look at your mortgage, send it to the friend about to torch their lawn. They'll thank you in 20 years, even if they're annoyed today. Now here's the last thing before I go. Real wealth is quiet. It throws no parties, posts no pictures. It compounds while others celebrate wrong finish lines. The neighbor with the mortgage and brokerage account isn't bragging. He's just busy being quietly, steadily rich every year. He learned the one lesson that took the rest of us way too long to figure out about debt. Debt isn't always the enemy. At the right rate, right term, it's the best tool you'll ever be handed. The only question is whether you use it or burn it down. Debt